Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and I welcome you today to the Breaking Free Show. As always, it's an honor to have your presence. We're delighted to have you here. And each and every week, we look forward to, I don't know, making the world a smaller place, creating an opportunity here on our show to engage with interesting people, doing interesting things, having interesting experiences so that we all can learn and grow together. And today is going to be really fun. So just stay with us. And as always, you are more than welcome to call into the show at 919-518-9773, or you can Skype in with us at computers 2, that's the number 2K voice. And you can chat with us in our chat room. Just put your name, nickname, whatever you like, right near the video, and you'll partake in that as well. Before I introduce my guest to you, I want to say hi to Amnon, who is our producer. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm just fine.
Did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. Hope you
Good.
did too.
I did. I had my little 2-year-old grandson celebrated his 2-year birthday, and that's always fun to see all those
Gosh,
little
time
kids.
flies.
It is, and just love them to
Yep.
pieces. So anyway, it's really fun. So today, I want to tell you about my guest. You know, we're very fortunate. We make lots of good friends, and because of my friend Denise, I heard about this gentleman writing this book. Well, not writing this book, but this book was just about to come out and launch. And how often is it that you get an opportunity to interview someone whose book is just coming out and you know in your heart it's going to be a bestseller? And this book is. And the name of this book is Dying to Wake Up, A Doctor's Voyage into the Afterlife and the Wisdom He Brought Back. And that is Dr. Rajiv Parti, MD. And I'm going to show you his book before we get started, just so, can you see it? What, up, down,
No, just turn it a little bit.
this way?
No,
This
yeah.
way. Here we go. Can you
No,
see it?
It's too.
Okay, let's see. Well, anyway, it's a great book. I've been reading it, and I love books like this because I truly believe that there's more. And Dr. Parti was the chief of anesthesiology at Bakersfield Hospital in California in their heart center. And, when you hear about physicians that are doing things that are like off the grid, you kind of, your eyes open up and you listen. You listen closely. And this is what happened with Dr. Party. This is his experience. And so I want to introduce him to you today because he's going to tell you everything. Dr. Party, welcome to our show.
Marilyn, it is my honor and pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's mine as well, and I look forward to hearing it from you because I've read the book, but I want to hear. But I know you've got so much more to share than what's between these words. So why don't you go ahead and start to share your story?
I want to, or basically, this book talks about an incident which happened in my life in December of 2010, which changed every aspect of my life. Like what I eat, what I drink, what I drive, where I live, and profession, relationship with God, with my kids, and my wife. With my mother, I had a great relationship to begin with, so there was nothing deeper to go there. Me and my mother had the same birthday. So now, how it changed, I need to take you back to my childhood, what I was before my near death experience, and then I'll talk to you about my near death experience and my life after my near death experience. I was born in a middle class family. My father was an air traffic controller, and my mother was an English teacher. My father was a very strict disciplinarian. He used to believe, spare the rod and spoil the child. But still, in my 10th grade, I got into bad company, started smoking, drinking, and even flunked my 10th grade. And I was got caught by my father and the principal, and I still remember that beating. It was so painful with a baseball, actually cricket bat. But then something shifted in my father. He started waking me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, make me tea and coffee, and I became the best student. And then I wanted to become a doctor. And my mother came to meet the principal so I can take biology to become a doctor. And that principal was so rude to my mother. He said, exactly pointing at her face, "Do you think your son can be a doctor one day?" And made my mother cry. And that's the day I resolved, no matter what it is, I will become a doctor one day. And I became a doctor to wipe my mother's tears.
Uh, uh,
So I
Rajiv,
finished medical
let me
school. I
ask you
came.
one question before you go
Sure.
on. Who said, was this your father that said you always take to your mother, you always take his side, but if a nail is bent, you must hammer it to make it straight?
Yes, it was my father.
That's quite a statement.
Yeah. And you know, he was a product of partition of India. And when India and Pakistan became two countries. And I think he suffered from PTSD. So what he couldn't become in his life, he wanted to live through me. So anyway, then I finished my medical school. And during the early part of medical school, I became very spiritual when I was dissecting dead bodies for anatomy. This person was a father to somebody a few months ago, or a son to somebody. What is life? Why are we here? So these questions became very important to me. I read a lot of books, spiritual, religious books, different religions, and I even ran away from my house to become a monk. But the head of the monastery sent me back that it is not my time yet to go and finish medical school. And then on 22nd October 1982, I still remember, I landed at JFK, my first time to America. And I was just at New York 2 days ago for to be on Fox News, and I was remembering that particular day.
Mm.
And I worked as a taxi driver, as odd jobs to finish my requirements to become a doctor in US. So first I did a residency in pediatrics in Brooklyn, New York. But now the religious or the spiritual Raj was left behind. The American dream, actually my dream became a runaway American dream to make as much money as fast as possible. So pediatrics is the lowest paying specialty in US. So I went back and did another residency in anesthesia, which is one of the highest paying. And in the meantime, I also got married to a beautiful woman, a semi-arranged woman, a semi-arranged marriage that my father and mother had put us together, but I and her had the final say. And we fell in love almost instantaneously. You won't believe it. I met her for the first time on 29th January, got engaged on 31st January, and I got married on 12th February. And my mom
That's
says,
quick. That's quick.
yeah. And then my mom says, "Son, I want to be a grandmother soon." I said, "Mom, don't worry. I'm working very hard at it." And we had a baby boy 9 days, 10 months later.
Oh my goodness. You don't mess.
Wow.
You know what I notice about you? You
Hmm.
don't mess around.
That's one thing I have. I don't mess around.
You do not mess around. I mean, you when you have, and I have never met Rajiv until today, but I my impression of you when you get a thing, you're gonna go for it.
That is very true.
Hmm.
That's very true.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So then I finished my residency in Nashville, Tennessee in anesthesiology and moved to California because my sister was in California. And as I said, materialism was my highest priority. You know, the green buck was my God. So much so, as Marilyn said, in 99 2000, I got stuck by the stock market bubble, the stock market,
Collapse.
gambling habit. So much so that I even got a license as a stock person, and for 1.5 or 2 years I did not practice as a doctor, but I was playing internet stocks, Apple, Excite, and all those high flying stocks. But then I lost it all in 2000 and went back to being a doctor. And so my life in Bakersfield, I moved to Bakersfield because it gave me a very nice opportunity for my job as an anesthesiologist. And technically, I was very good, so I rose to become the chief of anesthesia at Bakersfield Heart Hospital. I built, I think, 3 or 4 houses, but I changed about 4 or 5 houses, and each one bigger than the other. Each car used to be more expensive than the other, like what they call in America competing with the Jones.
Keep up.
So when the last house you had, when you say in the book, eventually we'll get to this point where Rajiv gave away his mansion. How big was that house?
About 10, 11,000 square foot.
Wow.
It had its own home, 8 or 10 seater home theater, and we had decorated as a 1920s cinema hall with satin curtains. We even got an old popcorn machine from eBay.
Mm. So what were you like then as a person when, while you were at Bakersfield? What were you like?
As a person, I was like, one quality I had was, if I decided to do something, I will go for it. And I was, my relationship, especially with my children and especially with my eldest son, was very rough. Like I was not physically abusive to my children, but verbally, especially to my eldest son, my father started showing through me. Like, I kind of forced him into medical school, and he did not like it. He did went there for 5 years, and wasted 5 years, my close to $300,000. I was very mad that time.
Mhm. So you were very hard on him, and then how were you as? I mean, and I'm having some leading questions because, of course, I read his book, and one thing about Dr. Party was he was so upfront and honest in his book about his way of being, and I think that only gives more credence to what occurred for him because he's taken more than just a 180. So as a father, he explained that he was abusive and very tough on his elder son, and then as a doctor, he was a great doctor. But what in the book you were talking about how you really you
I didn't have that heart to heart connection with my patients. Like, I had a big pain management practice too. And then, like, a lady I talk in the book came to me because she wanted to get a prescription for her pain medications. I
Mhm.
wrote the prescription, but she just wanted me to spend 1 or 2 minutes with her. She wanted to talk because her husband was dying, but I didn't have time for it. I moved on because the more patients you see or the more procedures you do, the more money you make.
Right.
Like, a stage came for me, whether I owned the house or house owned me. My monthly mortgage and tax was about $15,000 a month.
Wow.
I became a slave to my house.
And so and you also uh became had an addiction issue as well, right?
Yeah, addiction issue happened. Then I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in August of 2008. So I flew from California to Florida to have it done by, especially done through small holes in the belly, called laparoscopic. And the surgery went fine. Cancer was all gone, but I was left with some complications, especially scarring where the surgery was, the anastomosis was, and I had to go, and I would not be able to go to the bathroom. So I would have to go again and again to get that cut, the scar cut. So I had total of 7 surgeries. That led to severe pelvic pain. And For pelvic pain, I was prescribed pain medications, which I used to prescribe. And then I got addicted and dependent upon those pain medications. And then also led to depression. And then 2.5 years pass, I see a doctor at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, because the biggest complication I had was incontinence. I had to wear adult diaper, and my cases were sometimes 6, 7 hours long. And so when I got the surgery done, it's called artificial sphincter, urinary sphincter, that got infected. 1 second.
Go ahead.
Monday
That's
to
okay.
say hi to you.
We take all kinds of guests on this show. That's all
Eddie,
right. And what's your dog's name?
Vincent, he was standing next to me saying, "Lift me up, lift me
Okay,
up."
that's good.
But
We're happy to have him.
yeah, he's my baby. Say
He's your
baby.
baby.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yes.
So, you know, you've had quite an experience evolving into, where you are and how you've evolved. I mean, all of these um, instances, situations, experiences were, quite extreme, or weren't they? It was like you had the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And for just 1 second, besides, I remember reading in your book, and I want to make note of this, besides the money issue in why you chose anesthesiology, your wife also mentioned something to the degree that you didn't even like talking to people, right?
Yeah.
So one of the other reasons for choosing this field of medicine was because you didn't have to really talk to people by the time. I mean, yeah,
It's the only specialty where we talked 2 minutes. Like average talk was, "Good morning, sir. Are you allergic to any medicine? Yes or no? When did you last eat or drink anything? And then, do you have any major heart or liver or kidney problems?"
and that was it.
That was it. And they go and check the lab results, and and goes the medicine in the IV.
And that was it. So before we get on with the rest of the story, I just want to once again invite anybody who's listening and want to call in anytime during the show. Write this number down: 919-518-9773, or computers, that's plural, the number 2K voice if you want to come in on Skype. And also you are more than welcome to join us in the chat and ask questions in there. And as the show gets on and you start to hear more about Dr. Party's actual near death experience, you might have some questions. I hope you do. So feel free, an open invitation to join us. Okay, so take us now to the next place, Dr. Party. Where are we going now?
Okay, so I had surgery done in, I think, around 14th of December for to implant that device, urinary sphincter. Surgery went fine, but few days later, I started developing high fever, redness, and swelling around my pelvic area. And that was obvious I was getting post-surgical infection. And the fever went up to 105, and I was trembling like a leaf. So first they tried giving me oral antibiotics like Keflex, and then they tried heavy duty IV antibiotics, vancomycin and gentamicin. That didn't work. Then the doctor said to come to the hospital right away because now the swelling and redness has become so bad that I could not even go to the bathroom from the swelling. So it's about 120 miles from my house, and my wife drove me there around 8 or 9 in the evening, and I was crying, she was crying. We were going through what is known as grapevine, through the mountainous area from Bakersfield to Los Angeles. And I was thinking, hope this is not my last night. And when I talked to my wife, she was thinking, what if something happens on the way? And looking back, it was not a smart decision to go by our private car. We should have called from medical transport. Anyway,
So you
So
get
I
to the
went.
hospital and
Yeah, we go to the UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles Hospital. So since the infection was getting worse and it can go into the blood and cause what is known as sepsis. And the next step from sepsis is septic shock, which even with modern technology and the medicine has 70% mortality. So next morning they decided to do emergency surgery to take the device out because it had become the source of infection. So they induced general anesthesia, and I remember seeing the clock in the operating room because every room has one. And about 20 minutes later, I saw myself near the ceiling and looking down on my own body. And I could hear the anesthesiologist talk.
so let
And
me
he,
ask you what I need to ask you this because I thought about this while I was reading your book. You saw yourself in both places. You saw yourself on the ceiling and then you saw yourself down. You saw both visions.
I was looking down at my body
You were
first.
looking down at your body. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I could smell the smelly fluid coming out of my body. And the nurse was applying that eucalyptus oil to the masks so surgeons can keep operating. And the main thing, anesthesiologist even told a joke, which I remembered, but I can't repeat, because it was a dirty joke.
Okay. Gotcha.
You know,
Gotcha.
so much happens in operating room. You know, the patients who knew it, they will be really shocked. You know, like my one cardiac surgeon, I don't want to take his name, is always cursing his mother-in-law.
So one of the things I was going to ask you was how did you know that you weren't through this experience you weren't dreaming? And I guess part of that answer just came to me is that you had heard the joke. You couldn't have been dreaming if you heard the joke, right?
Yeah, and the
Right.
main thing is, I did tell the anesthesiologist in the
Right.
post-operative area that you told this joke, and he said I did tell the joke, but maybe you were light in anesthesia that you remembered it, because a hearing is the first sensation to come back and the last sensation to go when somebody is being put to sleep by anesthesia. But if I was light in anesthesia, I should have been hurting,
Right.
and that was not there. And actually, I looked at the medical records because when I had this out of looking at my own body, there is an anesthetic drug known as ketamine, which is like LSD or gives you a dissociative anesthesia, but we never use it, or very, I would say never, very, very rarely use in adults, and that to somebody who is very sick that he cannot tolerate any anesthesia. Usually we use it in children for burn dressing change. So that was not the case. Ketamine was not the case. So from there, my consciousness went to different realms. And that's when my experience started. And that's the experience which changed everything.
So and before we get into that, I just as a doctor and as a some conservative whatever doctor, were you when you woke up, did you doubt the experience you had? I mean, you obviously went back to your records. Was there some doubt as to the credibility of the experience, or did you always believe when you woke up that the experience was real?
After I woke up, for me, the experience was real.
Okay.
The people around me did not necessarily believe it because it reminded me of my own case, because few years back as an anesthesiologist there was, which is I think is the introduction, the frozen man, I was giving anesthesia for really a very difficult special kind of surgery which we do maybe once in a year or so, where the main artery aorta which comes off the heart had aneurysm, means it was bulging. And normally, during bypass heart surgeries, there is blood flowing through the brain by the pump. But in this case, we had to freeze the patient, literally freeze the patient for 45 minutes. There was no blood flowing through the brain. And that patient, when he woke up next day, was telling me out of his experience in the operating room and going to different realms. And I thought he didn't get blood to his brain for 45 minutes, though he was frozen, that maybe he had some brain damage, neurological damage. So I gave him a antipsychotic shot, Haldol. And I told him I'll come back to listen to him more, and then I never went back.
So let me just clarify this. So Dr. Party had an experience with someone who he thought was just, having brain damage from the surgery, from being in the surgery, and prescribed additional medication because he did not believe his story of having this out of body experience, and had told the patient he would come back to listen, and he didn't. So, having had his own experience of this later on, it makes this story even more real.
Yeah,
So, right?
yeah, that's so true.
Right.
And biggest part of my story is the effect it had on my life afterwards. If it was just a dream, then usually dreams don't have that dramatic effect.
And the other thing is, and I want you to go into some of what your experience was, but the other thing is a lot of, which is something you also said in the book, and many of us also know that when you wake up from a dream, you don't remember as much. You might
Yeah,
remember some, and maybe the more practice you have in remembering a dream, the more you remember. But eventually, a lot of that may go away. But for Dr. Party, it did not go away. It was very
yeah.
clear, right?
It is every clear even today. Right now, I can close my eyes and recall the whole step, the whole scenery, everything.
Mm. So now take us into what you experienced.
Okay, first me, one of the places I really went was what I can only talk about as a hellish realm. It was very dark. There was thunderstorm. There was at the same time there was fire, and I could hear a lot of crying and wailing. And there was a force which was my pushing and pulling me towards it. And my first reaction was, why am I here? What have I done? I cried and asked for help. And then I was given realization that my life was all about me. I was a very selfish person. All I cared was how to make money and get ahead in life, to compete with my friends and not connect with my patients or with my wife and children. And then, of my least expectation, who showed up was my father, who had died about 30 years ago as a complication from heart surgery in Fresno, California. And he rescued me, and as I mentioned before briefly, I had a very complex relationship with him. But that day I realized during this incident that he did love me, but he could not express, express it nicely. So, one of the lessons I tell people or I try to practice in my life, if you love somebody, let them know. Because they may not know that and they may be feeling grudges against you. And also to forgive people, because I had not forgiven my father till then. And and this forgiveness I'll talk later is for your sake, not for them.
So let me
And
ask
my
you, let me say one thing about this love thing. Now that, so in one of the changes that you've made, how, like, let's say with your son, I mean, sometimes we assume that people know that we love them because we are strict with them with our children. We do certain things. How do you show your love now, or how do you express it?
like treat them as a human being. treat them with care and respect, even if they are children and younger. Respect is to me is a form of love. That like my elder son wanted to go in computers, so he dropped out of medical school and then went into computers, and now he's doing he's in last year in University of San Francisco. He's very happy, and now I'm very happy.
That's
So
great.
to give value to their decision and what listen with an open mind to what other person has to say.
And you would not have done that before.
I wouldn't have, like, I was forcing him to go to
Right.
medical school. I was even went there and lived with him. He was in Aruba to kind of, he was 23, 24, and I was trying to spoon feed him by force to learn the medical subjects.
I hear you. So I want you to also, I mean, there's a lot of detail in the book that obviously we won't get to, and I would recommend you reading it, obviously, and we'll talk about that. But these messages that Dr. Party was getting, let's say from his father or from wherever he was traveling within this experience, he was getting telepathically,
Yeah, it was all telepathically.
all telepathic. Okay, so let's get more back into your experience.
Yeah, and then my father led me as if I'm a little boy towards a tunnel. And in that tunnel, I had the review of my present life. It was like a 360-degree view, and I call it a third person uh, view in the sense that I could feel what the person was feeling who I was interacting with, whether it was good or it was bad. Their feelings I could feel. It was not always bad. I have been married, and I have been a good son and all those things too. So I could feel what my actions were causing the other person. So it was a very quick, very fast view of the life. For me, the most amazing was that I remembered two past lives. And one of the past lives, I was a cruel prince, and I was whipping the poor farmers with a cane, and I was asking my soldiers to do the same. And the amazing thing is, I asked forgiveness from the farmers, and they forgave me. And in my right wrist, I was suffering in this life chronic pain. I had about three wrist surgeries. I had torn my triangular fibrocartilage. And one time I was not able to go to work for 6 months. The farmers forgave me, and my pain went away. And the amazing thing is, I was discussing this with Dr. Moody, the doctor who wrote a foreword to my book and who actually coined the words near death experience. How is it possible to go back and ask for forgiveness? And the answer he gave was because in the other realm, time is not necessarily linear. It can be curved, it can go backwards, or past, present, and future can exist at the same time. So that was my revelation. And that meanness from my past life continued in this life too. So I learned to do past life regression, and I see dramatic results. And one of the past lives, I was a poppy farmer in Afghanistan who used to daily taste the sap from the plants to see how good the quality is. And I got addicted to opium sap, and that manifested in this life as addiction to the pain medicines. I still remember me having a henna colored beard and having a turban.
So
And
that revelation about time, that's an extraordinary. I mean, that's an extraordinary revelation, and about forgiveness.
yeah,
I've thought about time, and this universe happening at the same time as this universe, and this is happening at the same time as this, and everything is really, there is no time. But I don't think I've ever stretched it
yeah,
to, let's say, forgiveness.
mm,
I mean, I always say it's never too late.
it's never too late.
It's never too, but I never. So could you just say that again? That clarification of the forgiveness? Because I think that's extremely powerful.
What I was trying to say is forgive people for what they may have. Actually, forgiveness, I can talk later or I can talk now. There are four levels of forgiveness. And in my workshop, I really take people through a forgiveness experience. One is to forgive the person who harmed you, and you're not forgiving them or condoning their action. Forgiveness is for your sake. So it takes away the charge and the emotional baggage it has for you. The other person who perpetuated this thing maybe in Hawaii having a good time, and here you are sitting in room and crying. And the second forgiveness is asking forgiveness for what you may have done wrong to somebody. And the third forgiveness is to forgive yourself for hurting yourself, which I found to be one of the hardest forgiveness. And other fourth forgiveness is to forgive yourself for hurting somebody else. So
So,
this is a full exercise, and it's a process. It is not just one time you say, "Oh, I forgive you," and it's over. No, it is a process.
mhm.
You have to do multiple times.
So, and I know there's plenty more to talk about, obviously, but when you went on this next journey of yours to become a healer,
Yeah,
did this did the information or your knowingness about things like the forgiveness or the eating or how to self-care or how to support other people, was that something that just came to you automatically because you've had this experience and it's already in you, or did you have to study it, read it, go to other workshops until you could conceptualize this new, the healing consciousness, as you put it? Did you have to like learn about it, or did you already have it?
this is a very good question. The way I'll answer it, the seeds, I already had it. But how to practice it in daily life with clients, technical aspects, I had to learn it.
Okay, so another. This is very, very important and very valuable. So I think, and I'm not sure, but I think what we're saying here is everybody has those seeds, and Dr. Party had this experience, kind of to wake up the seed, to grow the garden, and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, right? And he already had it, so we all have it.
Yeah, that's one my, usually when I speak, I say that transformation is available to each and every one right now. You don't need to have a near death experience to transform.
Right.
It's available to you right now.
What?
And there's basically three things, meditation, prayer, and service, which I call the Sanskrit word seva. So
Why
let
would?
me,
Good,
yeah,
good, good. No, finish what you were saying because I
yeah,
can hold it.
yeah. I was going to go to the other part of the experience.
Okay, and I want you to. I also want to ask you, why do you think you were chosen?
I get asked this question, and only 20% I think are people who are resuscitated have a near death experience. It's very hard to pinpoint exact why I was chosen or why I had the experience. But for me, I'm very thankful and to the grace,
Right,
to the divine grace, to have made me a conduit for the message of
right.
forgiveness, of love and healing. Maybe it was my karma, maybe it was, it's grace. I believe in grace a lot.
And what do you mean by grace?
Divine grace,
Divine grace.
like divine grace. And actually, what now I believe, I was just telling somebody in the morning, the winds of divine grace are always flowing. It is we who need to put our masks up to take advantage of it. The divine is, or this angel. Okay, so let me continue with my story.
Go
Then only
ahead.
then.
Yeah.
So then from the tunnel, on the other side, I was greeted by two young, robust men in a whitish color, and I didn't know who they were. They looked like angels. I knew who the angels are, but I did not know their names or specifications, what different types they are, what. And I was telepathically again told one was Michael and one was Raphael. And it made sense to me when I read more about them because Michael is the angel for strength and he's the head angel, and Raphael is the angel for healing and the patron saint for healers and doctors. It made total sense. And I was shocked, and when I told my wife about this incident, and her first reaction was, what happened to the thousands of Indian god and goddesses? None of them showed up.
That's
you
kind of
know
funny, actually, isn't it?
yeah, especially when I tell this and people listening to this are Hindu themselves,
Mm.
and they ask, and I said, I have again no reason for it. I got to tell the way the things were. But now I believe in angels, and my favorite angel now is Gabriel.
Gabriel. Uh huh.
Yeah, the Gabriel, he or she, people some call she, some he, is the angel for communication, for speaking, for books, and where I am right now talking to you or being my book becoming a bestseller the day it was released. I attribute it all to divine grace and especially working through Angel Gabriel, you know.
So there's so much to Dr. Party's story of where he went and how he did it and all that kind of stuff. And I think you should read his book. Tell everybody about your book, where they can find it.
Yeah, my book is very easy to find. Is just the title dying to wake up.com, and from there I have three links, one to local independent stores or Amazon or Barnes and Nobles.
Mm.
It's very easy there, dyingtowakeup.com. And or you can go to my website drparty.com, drparti.com. Like I say, when my kids or me on the telephone, we're talking about, sir, what's your name? I say, Dr. Party, party like party. But instead of Y, it is I for India because I'm originally from India.
Yes, exactly. So what else? I mean, and we have a bit of time left. So what other parts of your story? And then I
Yeah.
also want to bring them up. I want to bring our audience a little bit into your present and what you're doing with the gift that you had. So what
Yeah,
else? Go ahead.
then the angels, let me finish
Go
the
ahead.
yeah.
Yes.
Then the angels guided me towards, I flew over like a spirit over a beautiful meadows, flowers of very vibrant color, and there was this distant sound of Om. And I found myself in presence of a being of light. The light was so bright, like thousand suns, like it's on the cover of the book, kind of, but it did not hurt the eyes. And all I felt was love. All my senses were soaked with love, and not just love, but cosmic peace, which I call by Sanskrit word shanti. A lot of people do say in the end of yoga, shanti, 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 peace for me, peace for you, peace for the world. So that's what I felt. And I was given instructions that my life will be spared, but my life will change. It will be a different life I have to live. And from there, I suddenly woke up in the recovery room, and the person who went to sleep, Rajiv Party, and the one who woke up were two different people. So, as I say sometimes, now I used to put people to sleep, but now I help wake them up. That's what my dharma, my purpose, my calling is, to help people wake up.
So, how long do you think you were actually having the experience? You have any idea?
Like from the operating room and from the clock, you know, 20 minutes in it started, and I think surgery lasted 2 hours.
And I guess time doesn't really matter, so it doesn't matter.
Time really is not
It
exactly
doesn't matter.
linear, as I said
Right.
before. I have to describe it in a very linear fashion.
Hmm. Right. And we need, and just to conceptualize, sometimes it's good to have that linear just because we're humans, but it really
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So now bringing us up to date, and what you've done with this information, with this
Okay, with
journey.
this information, first of all, as I said, I have the seeds from my experience. What I'm supposed to do, I saw myself writing books, which I had never imagined in my life I will do that. I was happy being an anesthesiologist. I loved my job. Like especially what gave me a lot of satisfaction was a person whose heart was not starting during surgery, and after multiple tries and we got it started, and next day the person is having breakfast with their family. I used to feel so good. I didn't care whether they had money, but that satisfaction was very fulfilling. And now if I can help people transform, like one lady, I went to my local college, California State University, and gave a lecture on suicide prevention. And the student wrote me that, thank you for saving my life. I was thinking of committing suicide, but I'll never even cross that my mind. So these things is my way of giving back. And also, I teach meditation. I learned to do basic Ayurveda, which is the Indian way of healing, about 5,000-year old, from Deepak Chopra's center. And main emphasis is on service. My full mantra is forgive, love, and heal. And in love, I'm not just talking about romantic love, but I'm talking about love, which I call by Sanskrit word seva, seva, where I, as a doctor or as any other profession, feel obliged to the client for giving me the opportunity to take care of them. Can you imagine if doctors, lawyers, and especially the politicians followed that? That we are here to serve the world, the universe will change.
No question. And I guess part of it is, having doctors like you, and I read the other book by Doctor, what is it? The one who is a surgeon,
Evan
Evan.
Alexander.
Yeah, I read his book a long time ago. I mean, when you read, people like this, I mean, it does give this stuff credibility. I mean, if I come out here and talk about certain things, it may not give the subject as much credibility as
Mhm.
having, the chief of anesthesiology from Bakersfield Hospital come out and do it, or, whoever. And I read that, I mean, Dr. Weiss, I saw that Brian Weiss, you referred
Yeah,
to him in your book, and if, many lives, many masters, no, what,
exactly.
yeah. And he was one of my favorite authors when I came out as somebody who's really interested in energy and afterlife and all this stuff to myself. He was one of the first books that I read, and I was like, you know, just like we talked about with your dream, you don't forget it. I forget a lot of books that I read. I forget articles that I read. I forget titles that I read. But there are certain books like this you don't forget,
No.
right?
And like I'm also helping people with trauma, because an addiction and depression, trauma can happen from four places. Deep trauma. One, it could be leftover from the previous life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or it could be from childhood, or even intrauterine trauma,
Mm-hmm.
emotional, or it could be from the present life, and there's something known as family constellations, where your family, like your grandfather, up to 3 or 4 generations, suffered something in their life, like they're finding people who grandparents had a Holocaust experience, and their grandchildren are having the same symptoms like PTSD.
Right.
So there are 4 levels: previous life, childhood, present life, and from family generation.
And I
Like
want,
in my case, the trauma of abusing boys had been for generations. My father was abused by my grandfather, and my grandfather was abused by his father, physical abuse.
right, right. We have a question on the chat that I want to ask you about, and this
Yeah.
is from April, and she says, do you think that we keep coming back over and over, and does that ever stop?
You know, we keep coming because this is a school, and it's evolution of consciousness. And then one reaches a state of enlightenment or nirvana. And what I give the example is that we are waves in the ocean. Ocean is the pure, unadulterated consciousness, and the wave disappears in the ocean.
And so we keep coming back till we get it right,
Till our
or not
consciousness
right,
evolves.
till we
You know,
evolve.
like
Yeah.
this is a very, very deep and very big question. Like, why are we here? Why did God create us? What is the meaning of this? And the humanity has been trying to answer, and all different religions have different viewpoints. And at times, part of the Indian religion says it's God's play, Leela. We are here to have experience and evolve.
Hmm. Right. And we don't, I mean, we don't know. I don't know if there's one definitive answer. If we stop coming back once we reach that nirvana, or we come back because the planet needs people that reach nirvana. So it's hard to know, really. It's a great question, and
That is a great question, but actually, I like the concept uh, of bodhisattva. That's from Buddhism, and that is people like who are very highly evolved spiritually, but they give up their full enlightenment till they others are enlightened. So they take the vow of helping everybody reach the enlightenment before reaching their own enlightenment. I love that concept, bodhisattva.
and how do you know if, or does it matter if somebody's an enlightened one or isn't? How do you know if somebody is, or you are, or do you know, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter, you can know by the quality of work they do, and but they go through the normal life. A person is enlightened, they will still stub their toe. It's not that they won't fall. you
Hmm.
know After all, if you're living this human life,
Right.
you do take up human qualities, like Indian culture, Lord Krishna or Rama, or on the Christian side, uh, 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 Jesus and Muhammad and other very evolved spiritual beings, Buddha. If they were cut, they would still bleed.
It's a great question, and I love talking about these things, obviously, because I've been excited about this show. And I'd like to ask you, how does your heart, not your medical, the physical heart, but your energetic heart, how is that?
I love, I have done full training in this known as chakras, which are energy centers. And the best center is the heart chakra. To have it open, to beam green of soothing light to everybody. It's beautiful. I love to have heart to heart connection with people, with my audience, with my readers. Even though I'm not present physically, the person reading the book, and which I just said the website is dyingtowakeup.com. I get energetically connected to them.
When you hear yourself say that, do you still get the chills?
I do.
You do. You do.
Yeah. Like heart to heart connection is the most important connection.
Right.
And actually, like a lot of things what I'm talking about is not just woo woo or those things, but the modern science, the positive psychology or science of happiness is proving that people who are connected to something higher than selves find more fulfillment and joy in life. And higher can be God, spirit, or it could be just a higher ideal, like preventing abuse to young children, child pornography, or women violence, or even environment.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally am the most happy when we are talking about these types of things, this openness, the heart. Just the most happy. And I want to just thank you so much for your immediate willingness to join me here on the show. You didn't, you just said yes from the beginning, and I really appreciate that because that means a lot to say, well, let me take this book everywhere on every level, from the Fox TVs to to this show that gets millions and millions of viewers, to the Breaking Free show that gets, a couple of thousand viewers. So I appreciate that willingness of yours to share this experience.
Thank you. It is my honor, and that's my being connected to the higher ideal.
Yeah, it means a lot, and in the few moments that we have left, I want to welcome anybody that ever has an idea, a story, technology, anything that will help free up the planet, free us up individually. Please feel free at all, anytime to let me know. Marilyn at MarilynShannon.com. I am a business and life coach and love talking about these things as well. So if this is part of your life, uh, spiritually, great. If it isn't, I'm here too to talk with anybody about anything. Marilyn at MarilynShannon.com. Business, life, family, career, anything. So, Dr. Party, in the final words, the final minutes that we have, what would you like to share with our audience?
What's coming to my mind? I was in Montreal about 10 days ago at a conference, and somebody from the audience asked, how do I prepare for my death? How should I prepare for death?
Oh,
And the answer I gave was by living this life fully in service of others. And that's my message.
mhm.
How you live this life fully is the best way to prepare for death.
It's funny. You said something before about these different levels of of the past, of the present, and I was almost about to say preparing in this life for the future is one of those levels, and you just said it.
Yeah,
Because I think we don't, since it's all happening the same time anyway,
yeah.
right?
Be happy, love God, love
Mhm,
everybody, and
mhm.
have fun in life.
Yes, really. It's one
You know,
big mush, isn't it?
yeah.
So I want to thank everybody that's been here today that has been enjoying this show with us. It's been remarkable. And please, we're going to be posting it on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. Please share it. Come back here and to our on demand, and you can get it from there as well, because this is a show you want to share and spread around to your friends. Dr. Party, thank you so very much for gracing us today.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste to you as well. I'm Nan. Namaste to you.
Namaste to you.
Bye, everyone. See you
Bye.
soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.
You're attuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Health Then with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.